Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone. I'm Darcy Drager. I'm the chair of the Morris County Democratic Committee, and we are here with our CD11 Special Election Screening Committee, and we are welcoming New Jersey Lieutenant Governor Tahesha Way to our committee. Thank you so much for joining us, Lieutenant Governor, and I would like for our screening committee members to introduce themselves, starting with Judy.
Hi, welcome. I'm Judy. Call me Judy. I'm Judy Hernandez from Parsippany. I am on the council and I'm also the vice chair of the Parsippany Democratic Committee.
Yes, it's a pleasure, Judy.
Donna.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. I am Donna Gariglia. I'm the mayor of Morris Township. I'm on the Morris Township Democratic Committee and a district rep.
Hello, Madam Mayor.
John Eden.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. I'm John Aden from Florham Park, and I'm the chair of the Florham Park Democratic Committee.
Pleasure, Mr. Chair.
Tim.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. Good to see you again. I am the mayor of Morris, chair of the local Democratic Committee.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
And Christine.
Hello, Lieutenant Governor. My name is Christine Clark. I'm on the Democratic State Committee, Vice Chair in Jefferson Township, and a recent state Senate candidate. Welcome.
Thank you, Christine.
And then Sandra.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. I'm Sandra Whitner, and I'm a council member in the town of Dover.
Pleasure, Madam Councilwoman.
And then we, of course, have our executive director, Adam Cohen, joining us. He is running all of our technical stuff. So thank you so much, Adam, for making sure that we are connected and up and running. So Lieutenant Governor, we would love to start out to hear a little bit about your vision and motivation. Basically, we want you to tell us about yourself, what inspired you to run for Congress in CD11, and what is the core message that you would like to bring to voters?
Okay, again, I just want to thank you, Madam Chair, and of course, Vice Chair Della Matter in absentia, and the entire MCDC for having me today, especially in light of the fact that I get to celebrate my 5-4 birthday with each and every one of you. So
Happy birthday! What a terrible present.
I know. This is the best present ever, as one of my youngest daughters would say. But in all seriousness, I am running for Congress because North Jersey families deserve a rep who has 20 years of sound experience putting the people first and has walked in everyone's shoes in some way. Now, as a mom, who has raised her 4 daughters in Wayne and New Jersey's Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of State, I've spent my entire career fighting to make sure that government protects people's rights and freedoms, respects their work and their person, and creates pathways to success, especially for the middle class. See, I grew up in a union household that believed in education, integrity, and service. For those of you who do not know, my dad was that bus driver in the Bronx, New York. And as a young child, I would ride his bus because my parents couldn't afford childcare. But in those special moments, I got to see how proud my father was being the caretaker of the public, never causing an accident in his 25 years of service. And my mother, she was that railroad token clerk who would feed the homeless people who were around her station. So you saw that they worked hard to ensure that my older brother and I would be the first in our family to go to college. And when I nearly died of a cerebral brain hemorrhage at the age of 19 and was then denied insurance coverage for my rehabilitation, I knew right there that I wanted to serve others in some capacity. And I wanted to ensure that our systems work for all people. Now, I continued on to law school to become not only a trial civil attorney, I went on to serve as an educator for college students, as a professor, and to also serve as a county commissioner, a state judge, and now I am your state's chief election official and lieutenant governor. And in office, I firmly believe New Jerseyans should always be top at mind. And I'm talking about the double downing on expanding voter access, which I've done, supporting our small businesses, tourism, and arts sectors, protecting our kids' mental health, expanding tenant protections, housing, discrimination laws, and just standing up to Donald Trump and his administration's attempts to undermine our democracy. See, for me, democracy will always be the floor to all opportunities and privileges and rights. And my vision for CD11 is just a community where families can afford to stay, where our kids can build soundly their futures, and for a government that works for all of us. That means lowering costs, protecting our rights, and delivering upon the resources, the federal resources, to build better schools, safer communities, and jobs. And I'm running to bring our North Jersey brand of values of decency, hard work, and of course, the sacred caring for one another to Congress. I thank you, and I'm ready for the fight to be brought down to DC in the name of CD11.
Great, thank you so much. Judy.
Well, this Bronx girl is going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure,
And
sure.
I also, weird enough, had a cerebral hemorrhage as well. So how weird is that?
Oh my
Okay,
good. Oh
I
my
know.
goodness, Judy. Wow, Councilwoman. I'm
I
sorry to
know.
interrupt.
If policy priorities and solutions, what are the top 2 to 3 issues you plan to tackle if elected, and what specific solutions would you propose? Please move beyond describing the problems and articulate. Please move beyond describing problems and articulate actionable plans.
Sure. I would start with education as a mom, right? 4 daughters, a former educator, now lieutenant governor and secretary of state. I start with just the basic premise that there should be overall student success. And I want to ensure in Congress that I would make sure that every child in CD11, regardless of their zip code, right, or their color of skin, receives an access to high quality education. I look at all of the work that I've done at the Department of State. I start with, let's say, the Council on the Arts, right? There's specific arts education needs. I know that the Mayo Performing Arts Center, right here in Morris, right, does excellent work in terms of Arts Ed New Jersey. And I think that we need to bring more of the federal resources and back more of the efforts to ensure that our students understand the nature of the arts and that it is a creative economy. I also look at beyond the classroom what we're doing, and this is significant and important. For years, we've been working on the Historic Commission's programming for our 2026 semi-quincentennial, right? All of the needs with regards to that. And Morris County is one of the more significant counties for the celebration of our 250th. In fact, my team and I have built up throughout the state, including Morris, with our schools, the basic understanding of what values and principles for our students that the 250th would bring about. I also look at how I participated in one of the notable tavern talks at Black Horse Tavern in Mendham. Again, just those basic principles of responsibility, self-determination, perseverance that our kids need to understand and bring forth today. I would also, double down on the nature of internships, right, that the federal government could provide to our students. Notably, under my leadership, there's been a growth in the Hispanic Fellows Program at the Department of State. These paid fellowships are integral to our college students because Classroom instruction is key, but it's also what is key is the experiences that they get on the ground to ensure that they are in the pipeline. I also go back to my arts council. What I had fashioned was another internship during the summer for a leadership, right, of primarily girls, students, female college students, so that they too can become part of that pipeline, become part of being that curator and the like. And then one other aspect that I really want to focus on that I don't even think that our state provides enough resources to is the IDEA. See, I presided over special education cases, and I understand that there is the various nuances and there are the challenges to ensure that our special education students, and there are a significant population in New Jersey, oftentimes the funding is not there and that they would get left out. And then, of course, one of the key aspects that I find in our education that is not really there anymore is just the understanding of basic civics, which not only grounds our students as person, but also grounds them to understand that they should better serve and be part of community. That's what I did with my college ballot bowl. Not only are we talking about voter participation, voter registration, but what we instilled in our college students up and down the state is just the firm belief that they should be active citizens within this society. So I would bring this to bear. I would also focus on healthcare needs, right? I spoke to you, and Councilwoman, you understand the need, that how we have to continue to ensure that there is access and affordability to our health. I speak about this from the heart because when you're 19 years old and you're a student in college and you have to retrain your own self to read, that should not happen to anyone just because of your parents' health care or your health care is going to deny that treatment. So I am going to fight to ensure and voice that all of these, the Medicaid, right, in every single aspect of our healthcare system is not torn down. I would also like to focus on the overall opportunity and prosperity for all of us. And that means the affordability needs is part of this. That's number one. Again, growing up, with fiscal challenges with my parents, they worked very hard, but the idea that they could not afford childcare when they're doing the right thing should never, ever come to bear. So that is why I look at my departments, I look at my work, and what I have done is from day one, even as a county legislator, commissioner, I said there's going to be opportunity for each and every one of my residents. What I sought to do is consolidate services. And at the same time, not only were these services buttressed, but they were fiscally sound. I look at how we went from tax increase when I first got to the commissioner board, all the way down, and I want to say 5 to 7% annually. But when I became the president, taxes became stabilized just because of the consolidation efforts that I have put into place for Passaic County way back in the day, saving $10 million from each budget. But getting back to opportunity, this is what is key and prosperity for all of us. I look at my Business Action Center, which is the one-stop shop here where small business owners are just trying to get a leg up. And every single year, I have brought in record federal funds, especially for our export unit, ensuring that they can have just a piece of the New Jersey or American pie. Millions of dollars have been granted out to these small businesses, and now they can export. I also look at last year when I led a delegation of 40 to India. The opportunity for all there was the creation of jobs, and also the opportunity was ensuring that there would be MOUs between our universities for our kids and for the India universities and schools, and ensuring that we double down on innovation hubs and tech. And other opportunities that I see is just bringing this style. I mentioned the exporting. I mentioned making sure that everything is fiscally sound. I understand, with the SBA, what is going on with their lending, and we want to ensure federal contractors will be here for the businesses that are in CD 11.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Donna.
Okay, this question has to do with experience and qualifications. How does your background and professional experience prepare you to represent CD 11 effectively in Congress?
Well, that's a fair question. And again, I think that I am the candidate, right, with the most extensive experience. I start with just being a mom and understanding the needs of our kids, right? I look at how I have three daughters who have gone through college, and I've witnessed their stressors. So, what have I done as lieutenant governor? I have expanded mental health services, right, for our kids in college, 24/7 telehealth services for free. No need to go the insurance route. And, that is an issue I too would want to address in college because of all of the social media that's hampering our kids in their emotional and mental states. And to me, we always want to help, but we always want our kids to feel like they're protected. And for me, it was very important that they would not have a stigma. I also, think about again, I started out as a county commissioner. I was there like for our senior citizens. I think other commissioners were looking at me when I was hopping into the vehicle delivering meals on wheels to our seniors. And again, I'm experienced with that. I just want to be there, like for those who have been a part of our community for years and have worked hard and deserve their rights, and they should not have their Social Security, their Medicaid attacked. And speaking of Medicaid, I look at my experience as the head counsel for the Board of Social Services in Passaic County. And I think about how I bore witness every single morning to families who were in need of Medicaid. And I sat there with the caseworkers, ensuring that they would be referred to the proper agencies beyond the Board of Social Services for their requisite resources, but also made sure their health care needs were intact, and also just figuring out where they could be employable, right, in our communities so that they too can be those productive members of society and stand strong for those kids that were in the carriages and the strollers. I think about, me being a state judge, and the one thing about my experience as being an administrative state judge, you get to learn about every governmental agency, not only in state government, but in federal government. And that's where experience to bear is with special education by way of example. Then, of course, as Secretary of State and Lieutenant Governor, I look at that experience being the guardian of our democracy. And I just think about the years in which we have expanded democracy, but we've had to fight back. I can't count the number of times in which I have been, in litigation with the Trump administration, trying to take us back and voter suppress us. And guess what? I've successfully won. And I think I am the only candidate right now who is physically in the ring pushing back on just the simple fact that this administration is doing one of the most unconscionable things in history, going after voter rolls, trying to seek every voter's personal identifying information, regardless of what political spectrum you're on. To me, that's an affront and that's an offense. And we right now have pushed back. I have pushed back on this. And that expertise, what is going on with our democracy? I know that the team, Morris County Democratic Committee, you've witnessed the redistricting chaos that's going on. This is serious. This is truly serious in terms of our democracy, what is happening. We need a congressional member who not only has experience with affordability, healthcare, with transportation needs, especially as a county commissioner, who has like that lens of accountability and transparency. I have served as a state ethics commissioner. We need someone who has this expertise to go down to DC, understand the legislative and the legal and the strategy needing to be involved so that our voters are protected. You see, next year is a federal races. And right now, there's protection under the elections clause. That's why no one could challenge the November races. But next year it's federal. And this is significant and important. And then, even on the side of Lieutenant Governor, I have fought hard ensuring, partnering with this administration, the universal pre-K. I'll just uplift this. For families in CD11, such as mine, childcare is a second mortgage. So, what have we done? We've created 40,000 new, and I've been there, 40,000 new seats, pre K seats, affordable because it's free. And of course, it is going to be sound education that our students will receive. I also look at how I've doubled down on ensuring that there's disclosure or penalties of landlords if they do not properly notice and disclose lead. I look at how I've led the effort in our business community with matchmaking so that not only are our small businesses afforded an opportunity to get the resources they need, they are now partnered with other businesses to ensure that they excel. I look at the other legislation, that I signed, speaking of healthcare, right? That your insurance cannot deny biomarkers treatment to find that out if may have like that biomarker for cancer. These are the important expertise and experiences that I come to bear and that I would definitely, bring to DC.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much. Christine.
Hello, Lieutenant Governor. I get to ask you about your electability and campaign strategy. What is your strategy to win this seat in the special election, including outreach to key voter groups in the district?
That's a very significant and important question. And thank you for that, Christine. I start with who Tahesha is, right? And what I've always done is be a coalition builder, right? I started that out with our census. There were those who in 2019, 2020 thought we were not going to successfully count, and especially because of COVID-19. However, I properly plan because that's who I am. When you're a mom of four, you got to learn how to juggle it all and organize. That's one of the skill sets you learn. But in organizing everything, I built coalitions, right? of about 70 plus, and that's how we were successful to roll out our census. And it was the highest, I want to say, record of a census report in New Jersey in 3 decades. Similarly, so I've done that coalition building with our elections. And that is why I look even at 2020 under my leadership. New Jersey had the highest youth voter participation in 2020. So that is my plan, right? Having a strong coalition of volunteers and staff who can also deliver my message at the doors, on the phones, via text across Morris, Essex, and Passaic County. I think that it is a good thing that, I am Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State, that there is name recognition. If you come into the great state of New Jersey, you see my name alongside our governor. And also, if you have some services at agencies, you come and you see that. But I do believe, right, this is a sprint. No one is not going to deny that, but I've always worked hard. I go back to, again, the hemorrhage and how I had to fight and work hard to persuade voters who, are uncertain. I realize the nature of vote by mail. And again, under my leadership, vote by mail has expanded. I think the vote by mail, the clerks will be sending those out December the 22nd, around that time. So this is a crucial constituency, especially given it's winter and outside, maybe people may not be so inclined to go out to the ballot box and actually understand that there's an important election that is going on. I know that, I'm continuing to, I've been on the phone early in the morning, even on my birthday, and it's fine because I'm doing this not for myself, but for the residents of CD11 to raise the necessary resources to communicate my message out in the street. I've been speaking, with folk, and everyone is enthused. I think that there was a moment there were individuals who thought I may not enter the race, but when I did, they were very, very enthusiastic about this campaign. I am blessed, to have outside national support with the Congressional Black Caucus, the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association, Secretaries of State. I have another lineup of rolling out of those who have endorsed, notably the Oliver family. I know that West Orange Councilwoman Tammy Williams, as well as some others, have come to task. And again, this is going to be a quick election, right? But I believe I have a real grassroots momentum already with more than 1,300 individual donors who've invested in my campaign. We're backed by, again, another strong personal network and broad, small dollar enthusiasm. So I'm confident, and even my national team, I have a sound national team that is built up. And we understand it's a crowded primary, but they have outlined the various paths to victory. I just want, again, the message to be clear of who Tahesha Way is. I am that fighter, right? I know that I have walked a nonpartisan walk as Secretary of State, and I did that because for me, I always wanted or did not want any other party to say that the Democratic Party in New Jersey has a leader as chief election official and she is biased. I never wanted any egg on anyone's face. Yet, I ensured that our democratic policies, such as curing a ballot, such as 400, right, secure drop boxes, would be placed within our state. And I will never, ever forego any of these democratic principles. So my hope is to continue this impact, keep, the gas running. I'm on roller skates. I looked back into my basement. I put them on. They're tight because the last time I wore roller skates was back in, I want to say 1970 something or 1988. So I'm ready. I'm fired up. I have that team and I'm working hard for all of CD11, especially for you.
Thank you.
Tim.
Yes, my question, Lieutenant Governor, is going to be on leadership and collaboration.
Mhm.
Congress requires negotiation and coalition building. Can you give an example from your career where you were successfully worked across differences to achieve a goal?
Sure. I look at, and thank you for that question, Mayor. I go back to when I was sworn in as the president of the National Association of Secretaries of State. And I think that everyone realizes after 2020, the vitriol, if you will, that has been out there on, and the differences on both sides, the R states, red states, and the blue states. So I do fully recall after I got sworn in for this presidency, one of the first questions I was asked by a political reporter, because they knew that there was some contention out there. Okay, Secretary Way, how are you going to control the chaos in this association? And I was like, what? I just got sworn in. Just give me a hot moment. Just give me a hot moment. Okay. And I tell you, not once, and people can verify this, not once during my tenure, did anyone hear of any fights, differences that occurred under my leadership. And the way that I've had to approach this, and I'm going to credit several things. I'm going to first credit my kids, because when you have 4 individuals, you have to know how to mediate. Let's just start with that. And then secondly, I credit me being a judge, because I'm able to listen to 2 sides. I had a rate of 95% cases resolved. Why? Because eventually a side is going to say something with some commonality and you bring them in. Now, is it easy? I'm not going to mouth that any of this is easy. However, with hard work and dedication, it can get done. And even with the secretaries of state, I just kept everyone laser focused on eligibility of who can cast his or her ballot. There were stark differences, but nonetheless, I also spoke to them that we're going to respect one another, because in all of our states, we are looked upon, right, as those who are trustworthy and those who have integrity and are serious about our oaths. And I doubled down on that. So I know that with everything going on in Congress, yes, it's going to be a challenge, but I love hearing different perspectives. I enjoy trying to work with others. And I do still hold true to my values. I tell another story in the Association of Secretaries of State. I still remember, hearing the words of AVR, automatic voter registration, is for lazy folk. Now, I could just take offense to that, right? But I didn't. You just have conversations, offline conversations with those who say that. And you say to that person, okay, well, while I receive something, is it not true that there are those in a disability community that may not be able to perform and perfect something like someone else who does not have a disability? And it changes the thought process. And again, I do realize there's contention down in DC. But this is why I believe firmly that we need to look for those who have been in these climates and have that experience to bear and who are competent enough to be measured and bring a resolve to a problem, an issue, and do it in a graceful yet strong way. And make certain New Jersey's CD11 interests are forefront, but at the same time, again, show some respect and deference in bringing it all together. There's too much at stake. Again, affordability, healthcare, our economy. And I also, again, our democracy, everyone. I know that that may not be a top priority, but everyone, please understand we need folk in the ring who know what is going on thoroughly. And then, of course, in this district, our needs, Picatinny by way of example, right? Our other needs, right? Environmental needs too. Because, yeah, Picatinny is about job loss and everything like that. But you know what? I've dealt with environmental causes. Back when I was a county commissioner, unbeknownst to many, I was the first person on it with Commissioner Lisa Jackson DuPont in Pompton Lane, Plains. So, and again, just trying to bring everyone together. It's not going to be easy, but guess what? I'm that fighter. I'm that fighter from, I know one of you talked about Bronx, New York. I'm proud transplant. That's what we do. I also am that fighter. If I can overcome folk telling me you need to take a year off because of a brain hemorrhage. I returned to school out of hospital. I got out of the hospital in August and I returned in September. I think that's a fighter in of itself.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, John.
So one final question here we have on party building. Describe your efforts to help elect Democrats on the local, state, and federal level.
Sure. Well, let's start with the local level. And again, full disclosure, as Secretary of State, I have not been able to be at any of the Democratic functions, and that was not by choice. Again, it's because as an appointed, you have to, be nonpartisan and fair, and I never wanted the Democratic brand to be that Secretary of State gone rogue according to our Constitution, and then have others think that our elections are not free, fair, and secure. Going back to when I was a county commissioner, of course, I built a bench. I was supportive of all of our Democratic candidates, not only in person, but of course with some, as I call it, the treasures. I also, look at how I've served as the president of the Women's Caucus in Passaic County, right? Building up the bench of those who want to run for office, and it's called We Do. I also think about, on a national level, just being there for the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association, for our Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. And I do understand the importance because I remember Passaic County Commissioner at the time, Morris, was all red, right? And we don't want to go back to that. Governor-elect Mikey Sherrill has truly brought it home, right? In terms of ensuring that Morris County is now understanding that blue is the right way to go. And right is my maiden name, so I'm going to go and tell people to vote the right way. I just want to put that out there too. But but at the same time, I look at last year. No one didn't know this, right? But I was able to, under my lieutenant governor hat, I served as a national Harris surrogate. So I was there, bringing the message home to bear in states like Georgia. I was out in Pennsylvania. I was out in North Carolina repeatedly as her surrogate, and that was what I will continue to do because what we have going on nationally is unconscionable. And this is our time, right? That we as Democrats, and I do also want to say, not only we, older adult Democrats, there needs to be the focus on our college kids too. And that is why I uplifted my NJ Civic Engage. I uplifted the College Ballot Bowl to ensure that our young, who are our present and our future, also understand what the assignment should be. And they should do it in a more friendly way because we do want that change, right? But we also want to continue, as I mentioned, to build this bench of credible, competent candidates who have integrity, because that's key, and who can innovate in thought and who also can relate and empathize with the everyday voter, in my humble opinion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. We have 3 more questions for you before our brief lightning round, and I will just flag that we are bumping up a little bit on our time. So just to keep answers a little bit on the briefer side, but very much enjoying the detail, specificity that you're bringing to all of these questions. The first question, which we've been asking all candidates, is you are currently running in the CD11 special election. Should you lose the special election primary, would you continue to pursue the seat in the regular election cycle?
I would have to give that some thought. And the reason why I say I want to give that some thought is because I think that you have to think about who the voters, right, have accepted. You need to look at the data, and it would not be fair for me to automatically say that right now because this is all about us, right? It's not about me. It's about the voters.
Excellent. Thank you. The second question that we are asking of any of our candidates who are also elected officials is, which legislation where you were the lead sponsor are you most proud of?
I want to say what I am most proud of again, and I speak to this as a parent, right? And there's many in CD11, is the mental health legislation that I signed for college students.
Excellent. And then one last question before our lightning round. Lieutenant Governor Way, how do you see partnership between state agencies, county governments evolving to better support local communities like those in Morris County?
Sure, I think that that's key. And I think that that's what I've always done, especially on the state level. I look at how I run my elections. I don't run them in a silo. And that's why they're successful. I bring together all of the county election officials. I always give them a shout out, if you will. And I bring together the federal folk too. So I think that it should be holistic, just like with everything I've done, my Business Action Center too. You know, with the small business development centers, they're within the counties. It should never be a silo. And this is what we should be doing. But the one thing we should also do is ensure that there's consistency in how we are operating and not duplicating, over duplicating. We should be efficient with it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, Sandra, I'm going to move over to you for our very brief lightning round.
All right, Lieutenant Governor, we have a lightning round of very brief yes or no questions that will just give us an idea of how you align with Democratic policies and ideals.
Okay.
So the first question is, do you support access to affordable health care for all, including protections for pre-existing conditions?
Definitely, yes, that's me.
Do you support policies that promote racial, gender, and LGBTQ plus equity?
Amen to that. Yes, that's me.
Do you support policies to address climate change and expand clean energy?
Yes, that's me.
Do you support reproductive rights, including a woman's right to choose?
Definitely me with 4 girls.
Do you support do you support protecting and expanding voting rights?
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
last
yeah. Oh
question
yeah.
is,
No, I love that question. Oh yeah.
do you support comprehensive immigration reform, including a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants?
Amen to that. And I had legislation which wouldn't disclose immigration status. So yes.
Thank you very much. That's it.
Okay.
All right, we're now at the point where I will ask our screening committee members if anyone has a question that they would like to ask the Lieutenant Governor based on her responses so far, or if there are any questions that you want to follow up on. And
I actually do. You have such a wealth of experience. Can you tell us about a favorite project you worked on in your state service and why it was so meaningful to you?
Sure, sure. I think I outlined one of them. My favorite project was the college ballot bowl. But I think another one has been in partnership with my film commission, and I'm co-chair of Workforce and Diversity Committee. And for me, I always want everyone to be included in the pie. And we know how film production is blossoming very much so, right? In New Jersey. And the one thing I wanted to ensure that we included all pockets of New Jerseyans, those who do not have access, right, to film, and so that they can be in the pipeline of success and become those production assistants, can become, even the hair and makeup assistants. As small as this may sound for me, this one really comes to mind because it's important that if you're going to have government work at its best, you want government to tap into um, various areas so that everyone can raise their hand and participate and get better served, especially on the economic front for those individuals. So that's one of those too that comes to mind because I think I named several that have come to mind, but that too has been a joy.
Thank you.
We have one question that is usually asked by our screening committee member, Sherry Seffer, who is unable to join us today. And it is, what do you see? It's a Morris County specific question. What do you see as the most pressing policy needs in Morris County, and how would you address them?
Yes, I think that, I already mentioned Picatinny, which is top of mind with everyone, but I do like everything. I don't want to sound like the broken record, but for all of us, it is the affordability aspect of it all, just being that voice and that fighter down in DC to not only bring affordability costs down, prescription costs down in healthcare. I just use that by way of example, but just having the lived experience on what governmentally can a federal entity, right, realistically fund to bring down costs. And that's where jobs, right, really come into play. That's a major portion of this. I mentioned how, with my exporting unit in Business Action Center, how that actually can get affected, materialize, excuse me. So, those are several of the things, the keys that I feel in this, especially Morris County. I think that, another good thing too that we need to recognize, and I hope that, people understand where I'm coming from with this, is Morris is going to be able to receive a good deal of economic impact with the semi-quincentennial, and how heritage tourism has the ground legwork has been done. But part of that with federal, right, is ensuring that the overarching 250th committee understands that too federal resources should be brought to bear, especially with our small businesses that always need that upper hand, if you will, and the assist whenever necessary. So I think that again, small businesses, my work with the Business Action Center in partnership with the SBA. I also want to just quickly lift up, I know I talk a lot, housing, affordability. Last thing, last thing I want to say is that, I was one of those who made that push. There's a program for our vets. We do not want to forget about our vets, bringing veterans home program that we lifted up in the state. I was proud to announce it to ensure that the 1,000 homeless vets can be placed in affordable housing with our DCA and of course with HUD. And I stood in Wayne just about several months ago in which we opened up a unit for our vets with the affordable housing. But I know there are other needs in affordable housing because college students, they come home back to parents or they have to have multiple roommates because they can't even afford it. So the proper work needs to be done on that scale too. And I will definitely, given I've dealt with housing and affordability for these 20 years in different various roles, I'm there to fight and be the advocate, if you will, to ensure that this can evolve.
Sorry, I unmute myself. And I think John Aiden has our last question.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And these have been great answers. And my final question is, you've had a very long experience, over 20 years working in government, the county level, at the state level. What particular parts of it make you happy?
John, thank you for the question. I want to say there's really a lot. I started at the county level. I mentioned to you the Meals on Wheels. When you're able to be at a door and give people food, especially our seniors, that warms the heart. Even when I was able to support our schools, community college, and high school, it warms your heart being brought into classrooms. And they ask you, tell us about what you do. And at the time, I was a commissioner, or do we call them freeholder? But I was also an attorney. And there's young girls who look like you, right? Who have aspirations, and that warms your heart because you know what you went through when you were growing up, and you sought those you could communicate with and network with, and you may not have had that. It warmed my heart being a state judge, right? And especially in our education cases, making sure the district understood the needs of the parent, especially the special education kids. They get forgotten. They get forgotten. And bringing them together with their parents and making sure that to the best of everyone's ability, the CST team understood their needs and they could move on. Then again, as that counsel for social services, right? Just sitting there, listening to their stories, seeing their kids just wanting more, right? Not just healthcare, not just job wise, but just to be respected as a human being. That brought joy every single day. As your Secretary of State, what brings joy is when I've seen the growth of access to the ballot box. Because for me, I know what my ancestors fought for. I even know as a woman when we celebrated the 19th Amendment 100th year in 2020, and we won an Emmy for that, a regional Emmy for our documentary, My Historical, which is great. But just understanding that now there's open access to the ballot box. That brings me joy, and especially seeing our kids, right? And those who are part of exporting, the joy they have when I've gone to the fancy food show in New York City with them, and they're so appreciated, these small business owners, I tell you. And it brings joy that I could have brought in the federal funding, the millions of dollars, so they can accomplish their dream. Two young women from the South who are now in Jersey, they enjoy boiled peanuts, right? And I'm accustomed to boiled peanuts because my family comes from the South too. And now they get to export that. So that brings joy to your soul too. And on the lieutenant governor front, again, just going to the schools and witnessing the young kids getting quality free education as preschoolers, that has brought so much joy to my heart. I truly am going to miss state service. It has been, there are always challenges, right, in every aspect of what we do. But when you are public facing, which I have been for these past how many years, right? And you hear people out, even though some who might not agree with you or some who might be a little bit with you, but you still sit there and you hear them and you try to do for them. All of that brings me joy.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mhm.
It was
Thank
very
you.
heartwarming response. Thank you.
That is who I am. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, so we are now at the end of our questions. And so Lieutenant Governor Way, if you'd like to leave us with, and our viewers with any final thoughts about your candidacy for the CD11 special election.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and to the entire team. I know I talk a lot, but I enjoy every aspect of my work, and I wish I could be with you longer, just so that you really get an understanding who Tahesha Way is. I again feel with my vast experience, right, that I am the most experienced and competent leader, right, and can carry CD11 forward, right, as Mikey Sherrill has in her steed. It is with great pride and joy I come before you, and I do thank you for your time. It's endearing, and I appreciate this opportunity. With everything that I have done, I am firm that I am the candidate who, on day one, can hit the ground running on behalf of this great district. So, thank you so much for your time. I wish each and every one of you happy holidays, and I look forward to seeing you relatively soon.
Great, thank you so much. And we will see you again next Sunday at our nominating convention. We really appreciate your time today, your thoughtful answers, and we look forward to having Morris County get to know you better. So thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Have a wonderful evening and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you so much.
birthday.
Thank
Happy
you,
birthday.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.